This is part 2 of my journey to work, and we've just come out of Brookvale Park and up the hill, and I'm going to go under the M6 in a minute. This is really a video to try and imagine or reimagine how you could redesign these sorts of roads for cyclists. So I've already sort of been presenting the idea that the first part of my journey is really pleasant, certainly for single cyclists, although there are some obstacles that if you want to encourage more cycling you'd have to remove, but the next bit really needs a transformation. So you can see that this is signposted as a national cycleway, and we just climb and climb for a bit, and in a second you'll see the M6 motorway going over our head. I don't know how visible it is, but there's just litter everywhere down here, and this road surface, while it's not that great, is wonderful compared to what's just going to happen. This is a really interesting pile which keeps spreading into the cycle track. It actually is there to take people up to the motorway to be putting in some sort of national grid.
Thank you.
So some nice people letting me pass. But it does really feel like you've entered some sort of dystopian future, and part of Birmingham I'm going to take you through I don't suppose is particularly well known. The actual national cycle path goes off here to the left by W.H. Smith's distribution centre. You can see we're going over the canal now, and the cycle track takes you all the way along through to the city centre. We're off again now then. I wouldn't particularly use that myself. It put me off for a while. The national route's got the advantage of being off-road all the way to the city centre, but a substantial disadvantage. It really is a complex route, over the canal several times. The road surface is not good for a lot of it, and it's potentially risky, I feel. It goes under the Gravelly Hill interchange, or what most people would know as Spaghetti Junction, but we're going parallel with that at the moment into an area. There's some housing here, but it feels like it's just sort of struggling against all the small and medium engineering, logistics businesses that are here. And now we're entering Electric Avenue, and this is a fairly typical experience. There's huge lorries coming to this area, but on the other hand this road's really wide. It has to accommodate quite a lot of parking, including on the pavement, but you could easily put a really strong segregated cycle path along here, and if we want to imagine that this would be a route through to Birmingham for commuters on their bikes, then you'd really have to do that. There's the usual mixture up here of sort of small, medium factories that Birmingham's probably famous for, specialist engineering. But you can see here there's a van hire place, there's a scrapyard just coming up on the left, and we're going under now the Aston Expressway. So if I was actually driving in, I would come above our heads, and it's quite interesting to be taking a different route. It does feel like there were more vehicles on that day. This is me pulling really far over so I can see in front of this van, and so he can see me in his wing mirror. and I've got to turn right like him, so I'm sitting and hovering. But I really don't like this junction. If you wanted to redesign a junction, this would be the one. I'm turning right now and I'm going left in a second, and I'd love to give that junction to some sort of design specialists. This is interesting because there's a contraflow for cyclists, although it's one way for vehicles. You can actually go the other way for cycles, but I'm rather using it here to go where I shouldn't do, but to filter past all this traffic that's being held up. That's unusual actually, so something wrong with the car and that's holding everybody else up. But you can see here the size of these lorries, and here's the cycle path that's been specially designed. It's really nice and broad. It is only a painted one, but it's actually become a car park. I did feel that skip went far too close to me, particularly given that there's lights ahead, they're on red. There's actually an advanced stop line here for cyclists, so between them they've effectively blocked me. But just imagine if we had a proper separated cycle lane going up to these lights, and then you put in something like a cyclops junction here, or some version for lights controlled. But what I get is a whole bus lane. There's not a huge number of buses go up here. So I can't remember once in all my time cycling to work along here a bus has ever overtaken me or wanted to use the lane at the same time as me. So it's effectively a really wide cycle lane, and although it's not protected, it really does give me a feeling of much greater security. This is why actually I prefer coming up here. You'll see that although these are dual carriageways, they're not actually that busy. That's because this road runs parallel to the Aston Expressway, the A38M, and all the traffic gets clogged up there. Hardly anybody, cyclists or cars, use this area. I'm coming up now to some pedestrian crossing, but then we're getting to a roundabout. What you're actually asked to do as a cyclist is to come off onto the pavement. You can see that it says the end of the bike lane, and that actually takes you to another pedestrian crossing. The wait isn't that long really, but you know, there's so little traffic. That could actually be me, because that's the same car I've got, and I would be going to work down left there. But these bus lanes finish, so although that's probably a slightly quicker route by car, you could drive up here for instance, but I'm taken to cycling up here because this fantastic bus lane continues. You can see the sorts of small base engineering works. I don't know how good at spotting you are the age of the architecture, but a lot of this stuff goes back to the 50s and 60s. These are probably 80s buildings given the colour of their brick, and it's also an area that there's a lot of showrooms for cars and vans, although most of them seem to be closing down. But on the right there's one of the huge second-hand car places that you can go and get a car if that's your mode of transport. Here's another one of these strange get off and cycle on the pavement pieces, and they can see there's a Just Eat cyclist taking advantage of that, but I really don't like that. It's a really shiny ceramic surface to the path. I think they tried to copy the sort of Dutch block paving approach, but all you get is a slippy road surface for your wheels. It's a bit longer than I normally wait there, so a bit of traffic. This is not a nice bit. It's pretty narrow. You could easily get cycle lane in here both ways and have it a separated one. But they try to control the traffic through pinch points with these refuges for pedestrians crossing. can actually see some people walk along here, but it's not exactly a high active travel area. Now I've got to turn right here. I'm usually trying to control the traffic. That lorry wanted to get past me for most of my time going up there, but I was taking primary position. More back streets. You can see there were Victorian probably buildings here which have been demolished. You can see there are more what everybody likes to call logistics centres, but are basically places that these huge lorries and their containers can go. Most of the people who drive them at least are good drivers and will give you lots of space, but I have had some huge lorries try and overtake me, or actually succeed, in order to go into one of the businesses there. So it's a left turn. This is actually quite a steep run now. Firstly up to the canal, so if you'd taken the canal route you'd now be going underneath here, and this framework is I think it's the remnants of one of the gas collectors that when there used to be, everybody called in my day, town gas, that used to be collected and then distributed, and they've left the framework up. More of these small business units, and for a lot of people more opportunities to dump stuff. I have to say the council come regularly, if not frequently, and they clear it away, but I think that would be really off-putting. It does make you feel like you're in a neglected and uncared for area just for this period. But now we're starting to go into some of the more inner city housing areas. I used to turn right here and go round, but after a few close passes I found another route through, and both these routes go to one of the few segregated cycle lanes that's this side. But in order to do this I've got to get on the pavement here, apologise or say be friendly to that pedestrian because I'm sharing the path with him and I shouldn't really be doing so, through this health centre, but they've done this really nicely. Onto this bit of road which just serves these houses, so the only cars that you really get going through here are the ones coming for residents, whereas the other way is a through path into Birmingham. But both these roads come together onto the dual carriageway. I'm just going to go left here, but in order to do that you've got to get on the pavement. Why aren't we actually connecting it through? And you can see in front of us the cycle lane that's got these bollards inserted. They wouldn't actually physically keep the car away from you if one wanted to, but they sort of psychologically indicate that this is a separate road. And of course what you can see here, what they've done is taken a lane of the dual carriageway, it used to be a two-lane dual carriageway, and given it over to a multi-directional cycle path, two-directional cycle path. So if you got many cyclists on here, they would go the other way. I have to say that they go safely past, and that's not what the problem is with this bit of infrastructure, as we'll see. As with all things cycling, it's what you do at the junction. So there's a give way there for people who are driving, but most of the people who get to that point just go through. I think they've got their eyes on the dual carriageway and they just want to get off. Because we did just pass a Just Eat cyclist at that point. The other rather abrupt thing they've done is that they really have thought about people who are using that bus stop and getting them over to where the bus can stop. But it's a rather abrupt ramp, so you hit it with your wheel really hard. Some of the surface along this route is really bad. This bit's not too bad because it was designed for cars to go on originally. But the hitting, I've got front suspension, and even I find it a bit of a bruiser hitting these ramps what it must be like if you've got hard front forks. I don't know. So this is where we come to the issue, and this is crying out for a cyclops junction. There's multiple ways that you can get across here. Right? You can either do what I'm doing, which is making the cross and then going to a pedestrian and cycle crossing and waiting, because this is Birmingham's inner ring road, otherwise known as the biggest car park in Birmingham. You can see that the traffic backs up pretty quickly, and you can see the scale of the lorries. You can actually have high emissions as a vehicle here and not have to pay the charge, but I don't know whether you can see. If I look across the road in a second, you'll probably see the sign that says this is the low emission zone. So a lot of these vehicles wouldn't be allowed in the city centre, which is great for being in the city centre, but it means that everything gets routed around here, and while ostensibly I wouldn't be able to go at this point, if actually they'd left a bit of space, I could have crossed here. My two alternative strategies are to try and make this crossing on the right hand side. That tends to be quicker to get across, but then I'm on the wrong side of the road, both for my journey and for cycling. And you can see that it wasn't such a good choice, this, because my other option is to actually just turn myself around and sit in the road and wait with the rest of the traffic, and that would probably been better in terms of speed, because you're going to see what I'm going to do now is to ignore the cycling path and actually go on the road, because in designing this, I don't know whether this is the bit they did on the Friday or something, there are several ramps and so on. You're just smashing yourself, so I just go for the last one, because the light is now red and I'm actually turning left, and you are invited to go on this bit of pedestrian way and through the fenced off area, because we're doing building here. I'm pretty much at my destination here, which is the Birmingham City University campus. They completely rebuilt this road about 3 years ago, and you can see how wide it is, and there's just no cycling infrastructure at all into a university. I've got to turn right here because I'm now looking to park my bike up on the campus. You can see there's the car park for Millennium Point, which is nice and easy to get through, but as a cyclist you have to squeeze through this little area. And probably one of the biggest reasons that people don't cycle is there's nowhere safe to leave their bikes at the end, but at least I got some area anyway. Hope you found this interesting, and with part one gave you both a sense of my journey to work, but how much better, certainly in the part two, that cycling could be and will need to be if more people are going to do it.